said, my name is Charles Wilson. I'm a journalist. I'm a co-author with Eric Schlosser of a book for young people called Chew on This. It's everything you don't want to know about fast food. And today I'm going to tell you a few things you probably don't want to know about fast food. We wrote this book for young people because the fast food industry relies on young people. It relies on young people for its customer base, and it relies on young people for most of its workforce. But the messaging that most kids are getting about fast food is coming to them through $3 billion worth of fast food advertisements every year. And those advertisements usually show kids having lots of fun, being really healthy, hanging out with their friends, Hamburglar and Grimace, and just having a lot of fun. But nowhere in those ads will you ever see an actual description of how the food actually gets made, or what can happen to your body if you eat too much of this food. And so that's what Eric and I wanted to do, is sort of peel back the curtain a little bit and show young people a side of the fast food story that they're never going to really see in fast food advertisements. The fast food industry began with a lot of really self-made entrepreneurs. Among them was Richard and Matt McDonald, who started the first McDonald's Brothers restaurant in Southern California. And Richard is also really responsible for a marketing technique that's now known in the industry as pestropowder. And the idea behind this was that he noticed that literally he would have parents come into his restaurant and tell him over and over again that they would literally drive 4 or 5 blocks away from McDonald's if it was on their way home, in order to have their kids, avoid having their kids yelling from the backseat for a hamburger and a milkshake. And Richard said it got him to thinking that more attention should be devoted to this youngster business. Now, fast food restaurants or restaurant people never thought to advertise directly to kids before, because kids don't have their own money, they can't drive their own car. It didn't really make sense as to why you would advertise directly to kids. But what Richard realized was that if you could get one annoying kid in the backseat of a car, is that you could potentially have net 4 or 5 customers, because you had the dad who was driving the car, maybe the mom who's in the front seat, maybe an extra brother or sibling or two. And so if you could use the kid as a little salesman to their own family, you could potentially create a lot of business. And so what began as a very innocent idea became very much more sophisticated in time. For those of us of a certain age, you may remember the first Ronald McDonald was actually a man named Willard Scott, who was later the weatherman for the NBC Today Show. But he was an out-of-work clown that they hired in Washington, D.C. And the kids loved him, and the McDonald's restaurants were totally flooded in Washington, D.C. And they decided to take Ronald nationwide. They actually fired Willard Scott, though, because he was deemed to be too large to be Ronald McDonald nationwide. So then Ronald McDonald became one of the most recognizable figures to kids, not only in this country, but all across the world. And the whole idea of Ronald McDonald and the McDonald name was to create a mood about this food, to create a mood about hamburgers and French fries that really had nothing to do with hamburgers and French fries. The food was wrapped up like a little present. It was combined with images of joy and play. And also, fast food companies really relied on toys a lot as they grew to lure kids into the restaurants, and also have them be little salespeople with their parents. And so other fast food companies, seeing how successful McDonald's was at this, followed suit. So you have Sonic here, who's the French fry mascot for the Sonic chain. And you have Burger King created its own Burger Kingdom, and it has characters like Sir Shakes-a-Lot, who likes shakes a lot. And so other fast food companies followed McDonald's lead. And as the fast food industry grew, it also really changed how food was made. So if you went to a soda shop 70 years ago, this is typically how you would order a strawberry milkshake. These are the ingredients that you would have. You have strawberry, ice cream, sugar, a touch of vanilla. This week I went and looked at the Burger King strawberry milkshake, the ingredients for that. This is quite a different animal, so to speak. Some of those ingredients, look at propylene glycol is also one of the main ingredients in the deodorants that you have, or the antifreeze in your car. It helps, it's an emulsifier, it helps get to that nice kind of even texture. And then usually if you scan a list of this, you usually find at the bottom this phrase, artificial flavor. What's that? important to the fast food industry. And a real strawberry has a mix of both sweetness and bitterness. And the fast food industry realized that kids like the sweetness, but they don't like the bitterness so much. So when they create an artificial strawberry, they try to get rid of a lot of the bitterness. They do this by mixing a lot of small chemicals in small amounts. And on their own, in small amounts, these chemicals may be fine. But never before in human history have we mixed so many of them together. How many of you have you ever had Dannon strawberry fruit on the bottom yogurt? Anybody? Okay. Without knowing it, you're eating this. Bugs. A lot of, as you process a food, when you ship it long distances, when you freeze it, it loses a lot of its flavor, and it also loses a lot of the vibrancy of its color. And so, fast food manufacturers and processed food manufacturers realize they need to reinsert flavor and color back into these foods. And one way to do this, these Dactylopius coccus costa are harvested in Peru. They're little bugs that feed off of cactus pads. They're scraped off. They're ground up into a little powder. If you ground up 70,000 of these, it makes a very nice, rich red fruit dye. And so, if you look on your food label, anything that's red, if you have a strawberry milkshake or anything that's kind of a red flavor, look and see if you see carmine or cochineal extract on your label, and know that you're eating bugs. So, 100 years ago, if you were raising chickens, for meat or if you're raising chickens for eggs, this is roughly what your chicken farm might look like. This is from 1913, California. We have Farmer Brown here with maybe less than 200 chickens. Chicken McNugget radically revolutionized the chicken industry. Suddenly, something that had to be cooked at home, in your stove, it took a lot of time, was something that was a finger food. It could be eaten very quickly. And the amount of chicken that Americans eat went up exponentially. So now in the United States, 9 billion chickens are killed every year for human consumption. That's 30 chickens for every single man, woman, and child in this entire country. And they're grown mostly in these large chicken houses. These are usually 30,000 birds all at once. And they're also specifically raised to go from birth to slaughter in 7 weeks. And so this is a very unnatural process. One scientist said if you were to try to grow a human being that fast, it would be like trying to make a 6-year-old be 286 pounds. And one chicken farmer told me that actually a lot of her birds were dying of heart attacks because their bodies were just growing too fast for what they could stand. And just yesterday was released an undercover report on McDonald's egg-laying facilities. 90% of the eggs that you eat in this country come from battery cages. The birds are shoved into these little cages which are sort of stacked on a tier. And the birds spend the entire 2 years of their life having no more than a sheet of paper size to live in, and are used for their eggs this way. So this was a McDonald's facility that was just outed on 2020 last night. But this is the industry standard. And these birds, because they're confined in such small spaces, they have to cut the top of their beaks off so they don't peck at each other and cause each other trouble. But chickens often feel through their beak, and so that's not a good thing to do. And the last thing I want to mention is the fast food hamburger. I mean, you have the impression that a cow for a fast food hamburger is like this one. It's eating tall grass on the prairie. But the last 3 months of a fast food hamburger cow's life is a very different existence. It lives on a feedlot. Sometimes there are more than 100,000 cattle on these feedlots at one time. Never before in human history have we concentrated that many animals into one place. And they're fattened up. You see the truck that's driving up and down, but the food is put in this troughs that the animals eat out of. And the problem with this is that each one of these animals produces up to 50 pounds of waste every day. And where do you put that waste? And in some cases it's put into lagoons. But that is not Mount Fuji. That's not a Rocky Mountain backdrop. That is a mountain of poop. And here, this is in Milford, Nebraska. All the waste was piled up, and it spontaneously caught fire. And so you see the smoke coming off of it there. This was in 2004. put it out because they were worried about contaminating the local groundwater. And so they had to let it burn for 4 months. So Milford was not a very pleasant place to be during that time. But this reminded me that I always love this saying by John Muir, the naturalist, that if you pull at one part of nature, if you tamper with one part of nature, that you're likely to find the whole attached, that there will be other consequences. And Burger King has this phrase, have it your way. You know, Eric and I chose to call our book Chew on This. It's not do this, it's not don't do this. It's chew on this, it's think about it. And every time you make a purchase, you are part of a long chain of consequences, and to think about them.